Our next speaker is Hayley Burns, who comes to us from interstate. We will be sending around a bucket in a while to collect your donations to pay for her expenses in coming here to join us today. Hayley is a teacher and a former worker on Manus Island, where education and support services are outsourced by our government. Those of you with long memories about the Pacific Solution know that Manus Island, in a swamp, detention centre in a swamp, was evacuated and the detainees there sent to Nauru, where they joined the others who were transported against their will to an island nation so far away from any other mainland large island like Australia or Papua New Guinea. We have banished people who need help, who need support, to islands out of sight and out of mind. We are walking away, turning our back on the human rights of these people, and we are abandoning them in conditions which we would find unacceptable. If you follow the media, which is noticeably missing here today, I haven't seen a media camera, you won't be on the news tonight, even though this is a national day of action. On the media, there have been reports from great journalists like Mark Davis on SBS, who got into the Manus Island situation, at least on the boundary where he could get to see people and talk to them. So today we have a witness to what is going on in your name, in my name, and I am disgusted. Some people call them whistleblowers. I think we call them truth sayers. And we welcome Helen to our microphone today.
Hello. There is a song I like by Brooke Fraser. It's called Albertine. It's about a girl that Fraser meets in Rwanda who was orphaned by genocide. The chorus goes, "Now that I have seen, I am responsible. Faith without deeds is dead." She was so moved by meeting Albertine that she decided to use her fame and influence as a songwriter to tell people her story. The last sentence is a quote from the New Testament, James chapter 2, "Faith without deeds is dead." See, it's one thing to have strong beliefs about something, religion, social justice, politics, but actions speak louder than words. My name is Hayley, and in January of this year, I worked at the Regional Processing Centre on Manus Island as an English teacher for the Salvation Army. My journey with regional processing began then, but my involvement with refugees began more than a year before that, when I started visiting Villawood Detention Centre. Before then, I don't think I'd ever properly considered just how much caring for refugees in Australia is not about what it should be about, like providing basic needs and support for people to settle. Caring for refugees in Australia is too often about visiting detention centres and trying to support people detained there. I soon became aware of the particular psychological problems suffered by detainees. In Australia, the care of refugees is also tainted by this very ugly concept of deterrence. Depending on who you ask, this means either strengthening our borders from potentially dangerous people or saving poor people from drowning. But surely a government that cared about people's lives would give those people other options. Desperate people turning to people smugglers is indicative of our humanitarian failures, not our inability to protect our borders. For me, this policy very quickly became personal as I saw my friends suffering in detention and knew that this suffering was not accidental, but rather an essential component of a larger policy called deterrence. And when you think about it, this policy rests on the premise that these people don't matter, their time doesn't matter, their freedom can be removed arbitrarily. When the Houston report came out last year and the policy of no advantage was announced, along with the reopening of Nauru and Manus Island processing centres, I couldn't quite believe just how bad things had become. Watching them build the tent cities in Nauru and reclaiming the jungle back from the old centre on Manus, I knew I had to get there somehow. The first asylum seekers were transferred to Manus on the 21st of November last year, my 25th birthday. I watched them disembarking from the plane on TV, and less than 2 months later, I joined them on the very same tarmac in the tropical PNG heat. Manus Island is an absolutely beautiful place, which you don't hear very much, but it is. It's full of welcoming and honest people. And one day I will go back and I will see and enjoy it as it should be, not as an island prison, scarier than an oppressive regime, but as a place full of beauty and possibility. And yet, Manus Island was also the place where I saw grown men breaking down, forced to beg for their basic needs. On Manus Island, self-harm and hanging was a daily occurrence. On Manus Island, men, women and children were detained behind a fence like animals in a small, cramped, tense space. This led to protests and fights, escapes, hunger strikes, some of them very serious. Manus Island is also host to an impressive assortment of deadly diseases, many of which are mosquito-borne. The best way to get mosquito bites in PNG is to live in a tent, which all the men do. Also, more than 20 workers have contracted malaria since I came back. No one knows how many asylum seekers. They would get bites on top of bites, they would get infected and get worse every night. When asylum seekers arrive on Manus Island, many didn't know where they were, and they certainly didn't know why. Some were told in advance and counselled through the process. Others were simply woken in the dead of night by large guards, told to pack in the pitch darkness, bundled on a plane and whisked off under escort. Regardless, all who arrived when I was there had the look of someone suffering shell shock. The process was so violent, you could almost associate it with kidnapping. I had seen people before who had been stripped of their freedom, but this was something else entirely. Many people came to us already broken. The hardest thing was to be outside the centre when a code was called. Code blue was for fighting, code green for escapes, and the scariest was code black for anything life-threatening like self-harm. First we would hear the screams, we would stop what we were doing, listen, wait. Sometimes it would just be children playing. Then the radios would go off and the noise would echo around the tin shed that was our office space. The guards would go running in, taking the sound of their radios with them, and we would be left waiting, praying that it was nothing. Often it was just a false alarm, someone fainting, or just a minor incident. But sometimes the screams continued and the centre would be locked down. Early on I couldn't just sit around, I had to pace up and down in front of the fence praying as guards, medics and interpreters rushed past me, because no one ever needs an English teacher in an emergency. Every time I would think of those kids and remind myself that they were inside the fence. What was it like for them? When I was a child, I was scared of the dark, of murderers under my bed. Unlike these children who have come from persecution and lived in fear for their lives, I've had a sheltered childhood. See, children don't need real danger to be scared. They make monsters out of shadows and storybooks. What was Manus Island like for those children? We will never know, but I can assure you they were very often scared. In Manus, I again found myself at odds with the government along with my fellow workers. Here we were caring for these people and trying to serve their needs, but that was not why they were there. Manus Island is supposed to be a nasty, scary place, so any form of genuine service had an air of rebellion to it. Fraser says, "I am on a plane across a distant sea, but I carry you with me in the dust of my feet." This was true of Fraser and of me too, because the people on Manus Island are not strangers to me now. I met some of the most wonderful people there, and I see their faces wherever I go. I hear their voices as they tell me their stories, families killed or missing, parents who still don't know that their son has been sent to Manus because the shame is too much, an engagement called off, the waiting too long, children growing up without their father, constant fearful loved ones still in danger, constant shame to be idle, imprisoned, unable to provide. And you don't know them. No one knows them because they are hidden away and clothed in secrecy, but those people do matter. Wherever I go, I carry those people and their pain with me, along with the memories, good and bad. I have seen them, so I am responsible, and I'm speaking for them now. When Brooke Fraser left Rwanda, she pledged to tell the world what she had seen. But for me, I was forbidden to talk because of the contract I signed. Everyone who works there is made to be afraid to speak. I'm still afraid, but always that chorus is in my head and I can't shake off its truth. Now that I have seen, I am responsible. But now, my friends, you have seen it too, and we share that responsibility. You may not have carried the dust of that place on your feet, but you have seen with your eyes and heard with your ears. These are your detention centres, paid for with your taxes by your politicians. They cannot sanction anything without the approval of the Australian people. Now you have seen, now you know better, now you are responsible, and you carry them with you. Just want to say one more thing. When I came back from Manus, I thought that I would never be the same again. I thought I would never stop feeling sad and missing those beautiful people I met and taught. I wasn't allowed to go back. I couldn't even say goodbye. All I wanted to do was teach refugees, so that's what I did. Now I teach high school students from all over the world, children who came by boat, children who came by plane, children who came with visas, and children still waiting. I want to tell you something very controversial this election, and that is that all of these children are equal in dignity and value, and they were created by the same God. They all deserve our welcome and support, and they know this themselves because they all play together. These people's lives do matter. Please stand with me and fight for them, and let's march. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hayley. And she's come up all the way from Sydney, so there are a few bags from Refugee Action Collective members that are being passed around. If you can